So I am currently reading... okay, let's get it. Network Effect by Martha Wells. And for those who haven't read Murderbot yet, the first 4 books are all novellas. Pretty short. But Network Effect, which is book 5, is the first full-length novel. And it's so good. I'm just more than halfway through and I am loving every second of it. So a little check-in on the first half, or just over half. It's fantastic. A bit about the Murderbot Diaries for those who haven't read it yet. The Murderbot Diaries follows a robot droid sec unit that has nicknamed itself Murderbot. And this droid works for a company and is leased out to different parties who go to planets to terraform, colonize, all those sorts of things. So it's kind of like a killer robot security guard. But Murderbot doesn't want to do that. It just wants to chill in its chamber and watch its entertainment feed. So each of the 4 novellas follows a little almost mystery-esque sci-fi adventure with an overarching plot of humor, existentialism, and murderbotisms. But because of this more episodic-based narrative system, it's quite easily scalable to a full-length novel. They can just Martha Wells can just flesh out the mystery aspects and the character development, which is exactly what she's done. The mystery is really interesting. I think it's probably more interesting than the novella mysteries just because it can be fleshed out and it's got more to it. And she's really putting Murderbot through the ringer with this one. It's gone through a lot and it's really interesting to see the character develop even after reading 4 consecutive novellas. So needless to say, this could be my favourite in the Murderbot series so far. Really enjoying it, especially the mystery aspects, which were they were always interesting in the novellas, but they were always a backseat to Murderbot the character. I always read the Murderbot Diaries for Murderbot, but this one has a really interesting mystery and it's been really hard to put down. I'm going to read some more before it is dinner time. Broken Binding sub, first one of 2023. Bookmark. Ooh. Broken Binding are making the best special editions on the market. This is absolutely stunning. The details they put on the edges. But you know what must be done. Damn it. Box flipping aside, I should finish Network Effect today. So I'm going to read a wee bit now before I go to work. And then hopefully we'll finish it this afternoon. I feel like I have a really good grasp of the political landscape of the galaxy in the Murderbot Diaries. The way you learn about how the corporations work with buying planets, colonizing, terraforming over each book through the narrative is really a masterclass in world building and how not to do it through info dumps. Also, this Network Effect is really funny. It is many, many hours later now and I'm going to read some more Network Effect before dinner. I just read a chapter and this book has a bit of a weird structural quirk that I'm not going to say anything about because I think it's really fun to figure out once you're reading it, but it has a reason, and when you get to that reason it's really cool. So it's such a clever way to structure a sci-fi book. I've not seen anything like this. And how the mysteries all coming together. I might put this on my top 10 books list because it's So much fun. Anyway, I'm going to read some now, have dinner, and then hopefully finish this off tonight. So last night I finished Network Effect, and this was an easy 5-star read. Definitely one of my favourites of all time and the best Murderbot book so far. It was so good. But I have no idea how Martha Wells is able to make it hilarious, thrilling, and so emotional in such a compact 300 pages, 350 pages book. It's by far the funniest Murderbot book so far. This is the first one that had me laughing out loud. It was that funny, especially with some of the perspective changes that we get towards the end of the book. Brilliant. Throughout the book you do get short little interlude-like sections towards the end of chapters, and how they all came together at the end of the book and connected to the main narrative. It was so clever and well done. And of course the character of Murderbot is just probably my favourite character of all time. It's such a good character. It wasn't until I got another reference point, another robot towards the end of the book that really contrasted with Sec Unit Murderbot. You could really see how much the characters developed from the first book. But it's just felt that natural and easily flowing that you haven't noticed how drastic the changes within the character. And I think that's masterfully done as character development. If you can't even feel like the character's developing until you really think about it and realize how far the character's come, that's so well done. The plot was brilliant. The climax of the story was just compounding effect of all the things, bad things mainly, all coming up at once, and so many fun reveals, and it was such a fun little thrilling tale. This is the type of book that just has it all. I mean, how can it be funny, thrilling, and be as emotional and heartbreaking as it was, all within the page count? It's just all-time favourite. If you haven't read Murderbot yet, start with All Systems Red. Work your way to it. It's so good. The novellas are amazing as well, but this... So it is many days and a haircut later, and I am about 200 pages into Jade War. I'm actually surprised how much I missed being in Janloon and with these characters. I picked it up thinking, oh, I really need to read that next. It's been a while, and I do really want to read it, and I enjoyed Jade City. They're very slow books, and I think that if you don't connect to the characters, then you'll have a hard time with it. I've heard some people say they're just boring and don't get into it, which I completely understand if you're not connecting with the characters. However, once I started Jade War, I really got back into it, and I flew through the first 100 pages. It's starting to slow down a bit now. The thing is about Jade War is it's becoming a lot less about the clans, and it's kind of scaled up to more political, global scale, which I think is awesome. But so far there's been a lot of setup. It seems to be setting up lots of different things, so we're not spending too long on one thing, which means there's not a lot of tension for, oh, I really need to pick the book up and see what's going to happen next, because it is still very much setting lots of things up. However, I do think that once we get into the second half, it'll be knocking all these things down, and it'll be really entertaining. So I'm still really enjoying it. Every time I do pick it up, I always have fun with it. However, I am so glad that there is a character list, because there's so many named characters. In the way that the names are formatted with the family name first, it makes it difficult to remember different characters and being able to separate them. So having the character list at the start is a godsend. I'm actually away this weekend. We're having a weekend away for a family member's birthday. So I'm not sure how much reading I'll actually get done over the weekend, but I thought I'd still bring along the camera, bring along the book, and try and fit in some pages. Means I get some nice b-roll of somewhere new as well, which could be quite fun. But as for today, I need to do some video editing, and I'm working on formatting my book, which I should get back from the editor next week, if not the week after. Then it's all down to that last pass, sticking it in the formatting stuff that I'm setting up at the moment, which is quite complicated. There's so many different parts to formatting a book that you don't think about. like margin sizes and different page numbers on the top, you know, the inside page for the book because it's going to be on the page. I think it's different to be hardcover and paperback. You can have small margins. There's also other There's a lot more to it than I thought there was going to be. However, I'm actually quite enjoying piecing it all together. So I'm doing that, got some videos to edit, and then we'll read some more Jade War. Had a really good weekend. It was just pretty relaxed, chilled, spent time with the family. We did go into town on the second day and there was a charity shop with some books inside it. So you know what must be done? I got the Scions of Shannara and the Talismans of Shannara. I know this is book 1 and 4, but that's all they had. But yeah, I've not read any of the Shannara books yet, and I know that this is the second series now. I thought you could maybe read these first, but it turns out you can't. So I'll have to get the original Shannara books and read them before I read these. But I'm still really glad that I got these nice old paperbacks. I always love the style of that sort of generation of fantasy covers. Some of them can be really cheesy, but they have their own charm to them. And I have been reading more Jade War. I'm almost done. I don't know if you can see that. Is it too bright? I'm almost done with Jade War. I really don't know how to talk about this book, to be honest. When I was reading the first half, I did say I expected the second half to really pick up with all the setup, but so far it's been a lot more setup. We have had some payoffs and there's been some really fun twists and turns in the narrative, but this is a really slow-paced book. And I think it's just the type of narrative that it's meant to be. It's a mafia story, you know, gangs, there's a lot of talking and political maneuvering rather than action scenes. I did think we would get a wee bit more of the streets and action scenes, particularly in the second half when things I thought would kick off, but there's still a fair bit of setup. That's not to say I've been bored reading it. I've really enjoyed it every time I pick it up, but every time I finish reading and I put it down and I go away, I don't have that inkling to like, oh, I really need to find out what happens next. Because there's not a lot of chapter by chapter tension. It's a very slow build of tension. And I think the ending will be explosive with lots of exciting things happening where all the setup finally really pays off. And we have had some payoffs already. But I just kind of wanted a wee bit more. Ooh. But I have been enjoying it, to be fair. I do really like the characters, and every time I pick it up I'm not bored while I'm reading it, and I kind of sit and read it for hours because it is really entertaining. So I can't really complain, and it is just the type of story it is. So as long as the payoffs at the end are really good, then I'll be happy. But I'll do one more check-in when I finish this book. I'm going to go walking now with my friend, and then I'll hopefully finish this up tonight, and I'll do the last check-in with my last thoughts of the ending of Jade War tomorrow. I finished Jade War, and I have a lot of thoughts. I want to start by saying I did really enjoy it. I'm going to go into the negatives first, so then we can finish on the positives. My one problem with this book that isn't really a problem, it's the type of story it is, which I'll go into, is the pacing. Do you remember that clip of me when I said, oh, I'm halfway through, it's been pretty slow, a lot of setup. I'm sure the second half it'll be all payoffs for all of these setups. No, that's not the case. Now, this whole book isn't just setups, obviously. There are payoffs and twists and turns in the story that are really interesting and entertaining. However, what I would consider the A story, the main overarching story, there was a lot of setups for it and a lot of like maneuvering and movement within the story, but it didn't feel like there was a concrete start and end. And I get that this was a book 2 of a trilogy, so it's not going to complete the A story. There's still one more book, but it just felt like I would have liked more bigger plot A movement in this book. I really enjoyed the ending to this book. It's a fantastic ending, you know, some heart-wrenching moments, nice weaving of different plot lines coming together, but it felt like the ending to a part of a book. So even this book, it is in parts. You know, you have part 1, then you have, I don't know, 10, 15 chapters, and there's part 2. This felt like the ending to part of the story, whereas because it's the ending of a book, I really would have liked a grander ending, I guess, is one way of putting it. And it was a solid ending, so I can't really complain. It was still a good ending to the book. It's just, with as much setup as this book did, I would really have liked more of it to come to an ending at the end of this book. On the upside, has me super hyped for book 3. However, what the book did really well in is the character work. I absolutely adore the Calls and all the other characters in this book. Fonda Lee has this way of setting things up for a character for when something bad happens. It's just extra salt in the wound. Also, I will say the setup and the political intrigue in this book is fantastic. If you're a person who's really into wider scale stories between political entities, then this is definitely a series to check out. It's so interesting to see all these different moving parts and how they interweave and affect each other throughout the story. However, there is one moving part that drives me out the wall. In a good way. It's a character, and I absolutely hate them. I don't know how they're still alive. They should be dead. If they don't get what they deserve in book 3, I'm going to be so mad. You know how some series just have those one character? I've heard in live ships it's Kyle, I think his name is. Super hateable characters. And also there's one in Stormlight, but it's a spoiler, so I'm not going to say who. This series also has that character. And I hate them. I hate them so much. Give them death, please, Fonda Lee. But overall, I did really enjoy Jade War. It's a fantastic read. I love the characters. All the political maneuvering is really fun to read. And every time I picked it up, you know, I could sit and read it for hours and not get bored. My only super small gripe was I would have liked more of the overarching A story to be affected in the ending of this book. It's the type of narrative it is, so I can't really complain. And I did really enjoy it. It was a fantastic ending. So, shut up, Andrew. Stop complaining. You had a good time. What else can you look for in a book, you know? And this has me so excited to pick up Jade Legacy, because I've heard that's even more emotionally devastating than Jade War. And because it's the ending, you know, it's all going to come to an end, and I think it will be painful. I think it will be painful. But thank you very much for watching. This is my first ever attempt at a reading vlog, so you can tell me if it sucks in the comments. I'll probably do this again a couple more times just to get a feel for it, see how I enjoy filming this type of format and how you guys respond to it. So feel free to leave me some comments on things that you would like more of or less of. Less lifestyle stuff, less check-ins, more lifestyle stuff. Is this a good length for it? Just, you know, whatever thoughts you have for it. And if you made it this far in the video, thank you very much. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Ow, I just punched the radiator.